Hi there, I'm Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace, and today I'm going to show you how to build the Sky Slash 2 by Larry Ringer. Those of you who are outside the rocketry community will not recognize this airplane. Those of you within it will. It was the very first widespread successful front engine boost glider. Pretty much revolutionized the hobby. The Sky Slash 1, which was Larry's original, which had an auto elevator, was the first front engine boost glider. He was the originator of that idea. So what I'm going to show you how to do is how to build it out according to the free plans we've got on our website. There's a link in the description below that will explain that to you, or that will lead you to that information. And we're going to build both the 60% scale kit version as well as the full scale version, which is a little bit out of frame. You'll see it later. As to the significance of this one, this was built for me by Mike Spahn when I was about 10 or 11 years old. It was this design was my first exposure to rocket gliders, and in fact, Mike Spahn built the very first Sky Slash, he built a half-size Sky Slash 2, which was the first rocket-powered glider I ever saw. I think it was the first one he had ever seen too. So, pretty cool airplane. By now you've already seen the video we did on ours, so you know that I'm a huge fan of the design. If you're flying it competitively, you'll need to do something about getting a larger diameter body tube so that you can fit a streamer to the engine, so that when it ejects it has an engine. When the engine ejects, it has a streamer attached to it to comply with the NAR rules. If you're sport flying it, even at NAR sanctioned launches, you won't need that, but for competition you will. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started with the build. Okay, so here you see the parts for the aircraft. So these are your tail surfaces, and if you are building the aircraft yourself, from the free plans, you've got a pattern sheet that looks like this. This is the wings, so this is 1/32 balsa, 1/16 balsa, a 1 3/4 inch BT5 body tube, nose cone, balsa nose cone from, it's a BT5 size nose cone. You'll need a launch lug for a 1/8 inch launch rod, and then this is your fuselage from hard 1/8 inch balsa. Now, if you're building a full-size one, you're going to be doing something akin to this. So wings from 1/8 inch balsa, tails from 1/16, 3-inch long body tube, motor tube, your nose cone, and you can source various Estes specs ones from Balsa Machining Service, your launch lug, and then fuselage. I set it up in the parts files for this to be 2 pieces. Reason for that is my laser cutter that I'm currently using is limited to that. So DXF files are up there, so if you have access to a laser cutter, you can do all of that on your own. So we'll get started with building the little guy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop out our wings. Let's see if that did cut all the way through like it's supposed to. So some people are probably going to be asking about that full-size version. At present, I have no specific plans for kitting it, but as time goes on, we may pursue that. So I'll set that aside, actually. Sorry, got distractions here. Youngin is overseeing. So this is a Stanley Mini Razor plane. They're about, so if you search for Stanley Mini plane, you'll come up with this guy. And what I'm using it to do is to airfoil the wings. Some of you will ask, well, what other method can I use? Well, you can use sandpaper, but the thing that you'll want to take into account is we have set up this slot for your wing for an airfoiled wing. So you do need to kind of comply with the basic airfoil that's shown in order to fit this in there. Alternatively, you can cut into the fuselage a little bit and open that slot up. And we'll thin that down just a little bit more. There's no need to go ridiculously crazy thin, because you want this thing, this is a fairly small glider, and you want it to handle the speeds that it's going to see on launch. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the leading edge here, like that. And I don't know if you can really see the airfoil cross section too well, but there it is. And so at that point, we're going to do a test fit. We'll see that it is fitting a little bit tightly, so we may have to sand that out a little bit. We'll go ahead and do that, because it's got some roughness to it anyway. So the last one of these I built, wing fit perfectly in the fuselage, so there is some degree of variability to all of that. So what I'm doing is I'm rounding off the leading edge, and I am going to come on the bottom of the leading edge and round it off just a little bit too. You don't want to do that too much, because that Phillips entry on the bottom of that airfoil effectively erases the leading edge of the wing, which increases your looping tendency with the rocket. And now we see that the wing fits in there just fine. It'll probably... no, it fits fine. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with the left wing. The main thing that you want to do is you want to lay this wing upright so that you can look at this one and make sure you don't carve two right wings or two left wings or what have you. But we'll be back when I'm done with it. Okay, so we have done both sets of wings. So this is the larger one and the smaller one. Particularly if you're building the full-scale Sky Slash 2, take some time to carve a good airfoil, and that will you will not lose anything by getting a good airfoil on it. Don't use super light wood for this. Get some good medium grade C grain, and that'll help it handle the power of C engines and whatnot. And for comparison, our Aletta BC is about the same wingspan, and it's 3/16 inch sheet. So that should give you an idea of my fear of shredding wings on C engines. That being said, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to set the dihedral angle. So you bevel your wing roots, and you want to go straight forward and back so that you don't round this off. By the way, I should mention on the airfoil, if you're unfamiliar with good airfoils to use, look at our older videos on carbonets and whatnot, and you'll see what airfoil we recommend using. I recommend that on this aircraft as well. Alright, so we've got that, and I did round it a little bit. We'll see which wing is the culprit. Kind of both of them. Let's see, I'm going to adjust your view because I'm pulling out a frame too much. Alright. And you want a decent amount of dihedral. I'm going to try to give you a good piece of advice for something to use for it. And I would suggest setting the nose cone under here. However, that would be a bad idea, because that's not the nose cone you'll ultimately have, or may not have. So, here is a good gauge for your dihedral. And that is, go ahead and cut out your horizontal stab. I didn't get this one cut all the way through. Oh well. Alright, so we got that. And so we can use the end of the root of our stab as our dihedral gauge. Some people will ask, about exact settings, get the wingtips up by the thrust line and whatnot, and my experience with lots of boost gliders is that is not a major factor, contrary to all the books saying that they will loop one way or the other based on that. That simply is not the case. And I understand that G. Harry Stein was one of the people who said that, and I'm sorry, but he was wrong. There, I said it. You have heard me contradict the man. Alright, and with that, our dihedral is set. You want to sand the bottom of the wing a little bit to get a flat in there, so it slides into its fuselage slot a little better. And at that point, I'm going to bring this guy on in. Careful to not ding those sharp little wingtips. That is an unfortunate aspect of how this design is set up. There are lots of sharp points to get dinged. And then you make sure it fits in there real nice. And looks good. So at that point, we'll just go ahead and put some glue in here, and I've shifted off to the side a little bit. Fill it the other side. You can fill at the top if you want to, that's kind of your prerogative. I am going to put a little bit of glue in there just to provide a top bund. You do want that you want at least a little bit of top bonding on here, because with the slot through the fuselage like this, it's very thin right here, and so at high speeds that could separate out. Alright, and with that, you've got your wing mounted. For the tail, go ahead and slot all this out. I recommend just rounding the stab off on this little one. For our larger one, I recommend actually airfoiling the tail. Use about the same airfoil you did for the wing, and that'll give you a real nice profile. But for this little guy, you don't really need that much. And if you're going to expose this to full A engines, you don't want to introduce anything that could make it flutter. So I've tapered it back a little bit. I'll taper it a little more on the leading edge. Now, at this point, we can take this guy and we can lay it in, and there are slots the stab fits into. They'll be a little bit loose on this little one. Try to center it up as best as you can, and don't get glue in these little holes. And with that, on we go. And you can check to make sure it's lined up a little bit. You can notice I'm tilted a little bit, and that can be a good thing. I want it tilted the other way though, because I want to fly to the left, and that's purely because of how I'm trimming the airplane. It'll fly equally well either direction, but I'm going to trim to launch, hand launch it to the right, and have it snap into a left glide. So again, looking at that, let's see, we want this side of the stab a little bit higher than the left, and some of that you can get just by doing this. Another thing, which I have not done, which I do kind of recommend you do, is sand off, round off your fuselage a little bit. These are a little overbuilt, so there is no harm in sanding off some material on this. If you're building a modern glider, do not round the sides of the fuselage because you're taking away strength for no return on investment. On this airplane, you're taking away weight, and weight is the enemy of endurance. Up to a point. Somebody will now cue something about me ballasting carbonettes for wind. But this is not that type of airplane. And there we go. So, next thing, you can do your wall thing. If you've built rocket gliders before, you can stick this up against a wall, draw a line down it, etc. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to eyeball it. You do want to sand a flat, well, not a flat, just a sand off a rough spot. And the purpose of that is to provide better bonding. And then lay this on. I'm going to sight down it to line it up. And you can see, if you look, see how that lines up straight down the fuselage. I have set the back of the motor tube right at the start of the flat on top of the fuselage. And while that dries, I'm going to do the same thing with my launch slugs. I'm going to sand a rough spot in it. Sand a rough spot in the top of the fuselage. I know the plans show it on the bottom. I have discussed numerous times why I put it up at the top. Bottom line is it keeps you from snagging the tail on launch, and I have snagged lots of tails on lots of launches. If you're at an NAR sanctioned launch, chances are you are not going to have the tools and gadgets at their pads that I have at mine, and so you need some goodies like this to ensure that your aircraft gets off safely. So again, I've aligned my launch slug. Main reason to get it straight is not guidance up the rod, but rather just not letting it disturb the airflow. This is a small model, and that is proportionately large compared to the rest of the aircraft. So harden the back of your nose cone with some CA, and then put some CA around the edges. So we can now slide this in, rub the excess CA on the nose, and it just hardens it up a little bit if you like. And that's all good. Now all we need is our tip fins. Oh, and our rudder. There we go. And so we're going to sand the tail nice and streamlined. And we're just trying to do this to reduce drag and whatnot. Chances of the fin or wingtips fluttering are very low because they're comparatively small components. And so just going to lock that in. You can see it fits very, very nicely. And there we go. So I have filleted it a little bit. Now in theory the airplane will fly like this without the tip fins. I recommend the ones back here. Wingtips are not 100% necessary. Larry Ranger actually made a statement that they were not necessary, and he put them on there to make the airplane look cool so that people would want to build it. And well, it's part of the successes of his career at Estes. Either way, they definitely make it look cool, and it flies great either way. Be careful in cutting the slots and whatnot for these because they're very, very thin up at the front. But do sand them off a little bit. So at that point, you can just lock this into that stab tip, flush with the end. And make sure you seal this slot all the way up here. If you've airfoiled the stab heavily, like I have, or at least thinned it, there'll be a little bit of gap up front. So you want to account for that. Try to get it lined up as much as possible so you don't have any rudder trim issues. But we'll be back once I've got all the rest of these sanded out and we're ready to attach the wingtips. Okay, so we've got these wingtips cut out. Of course, we've got our two tip rudders mounted. If you'll notice, this is airfoiled. So make sure you pay attention to which surface is airfoiled. As you're sanding these, remember this little wingtip, the tip of it is very, very fragile. So sand accordingly. And it just fits on your, hang on, it just fits on your wingtip like that. Now you want to, and I already broke the end on mine, you make sure you want to align this vertically, not like that. Why? Simply because it looks cooler. It will not make a difference either way in your flight performance, but it will look better. Alright, and over on the other side. Same way. And then all you have to do is make sure this is sealed in real good so it doesn't break off. And there you go. I've never seen one of these come out nose heavy, so just that for the record. Hopefully we'll be able to get you some video on trimming this. You do want to trim it to fly. You want to trim this so it does not loop up very strongly. You more want it to roll into the glide a little bit, but you want to make sure it's not going to spiral in or anything. Now, before you do any of that, I recommend sealing this with butyrate dope, nitrate dope, something like that, and or varnish, and then give it a little, very light paint, just a little bit. You don't want to give it a whole lot to add, so you don't add weight. But anyway, we'll be back with this once I get the bigger one finished, and you can compare them. So I do want to show you with the bigger one, the full-size Sky/2 with the fuselage, to make sure as you're joining this, I'll turn it around so you can see it upright. So this is the top of your fuselage. The stab slot here goes on the bottom. And so when you lock this in, it should lock in very securely, like that, and there you go. Now if you're building from scratch, we have a full-size set of plans for this on there that shows the fuselage is one piece, and I would recommend cutting it that way, and be very careful to get the angle between the wing and the tail correct. There's a slight positive angle of the wing this direction relative to the tail, and that makes the aircraft just stable enough to fly very, very well without any extra positive stability. So it'll launch arrow straight, but it'll still pull out of a dive once it's in the glide. So I'll just go ahead and show you to fasten this together. You laser cut it or what have you. You just slide it in, hold it down against a flat surface like this table, and it should center in there and give you a perfect angle. And I sight down there and I can see, I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, you should be able to see that slight angle. It's about 1 degree. It's less than 1 degree. I think it's about 0.6 degrees, something like that for incidence. But anyway, there you go. Round this off a little bit, and then we'll come back once I get to some critical parts on it. Alright, just wanted to show you we airfoiled the stab nice and thin. And that's really all there is to it. Don't use super light wood for your stab on this. Also, this is kind of what the wing airfoil looks like. Just thought I'd share that with you as well. So, now that we have finished the construction of the Sky/2, as you can see here, I've already got these painted. This is what you're seeing now is actually after I've trimmed them and have flown these. So what I want to mention to you is there's going to be a trimming video at some point. Stay tuned. Probably about 3 days after this video that you're watching right now is uploaded, the trimming video will go live, and it'll be down in the description. In the meantime, you'll have to wait. But what I can tell you is go ahead and CG your models for right about where the wing root is, so right about here, and then trim them for a smooth, steady glide. The trimming video will tell you about that, but the thing I want to just caution you about is in the trimming video you'll see me trimming these to follow this nice straight trajectory in the glide, and you'll see once I start launching them how poorly that goes, because I got a little over enthusiastic. So you want to trim these airplanes so that if you get a really good steady throw, it will gradually start to pull up. You want to see that upward arc. And the down thrust is trimmed into these with the pods causes that to turn into a really nice straight launch. But other than that, good stuff lies ahead. I hope you enjoy these. Many people have enjoyed these. After all, it is the world's very first front engine boost glider, so it was the first modern boost glider. So enjoy. Questions, comments in the comments section below. Kits for the little one are on our website, which may be why you're watching this video anyway, but hey, you know, whatever. So anyway, thanks for watching. Build rockets, fly with me, even if you have to just do it, you know, vicariously through the internet. And we'll see you.